They thought moving into New Jersey Flat 2B was a new beginning. But sometimes the walls have eyes. Every night, when her mother left for the night shift, she could feel it, a presence watching from the other side. What she discovered behind that wall was something no one should ever see. Now, if you're new to our channel and interested in these stories, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss another upload. On to our today's story. The walls, once white, were now a faded yellow, with paint peeling off in patches. The lawn was patchy and overgrown with weeds, while the forgotten toys and cracked paving stones in the car park told silent stories of time passing. This was a place where people either had very little or found themselves at a difficult crossroads in life, with no clear way back. Two such lives were Emma and her mother Rose. For Rose, this move wasn't a fresh start, but a necessity. After her husband left, life had forced her into a new kind of battle. The night shift job at the local hospital was grueling, but it was a mother's only means to provide for her teenage daughter. Their new home, New Jersey Flat 2B, was a modest two-bedroom apartment with worn-out carpets and doors that rattled and whistled with every gust of wind from the Essex marshes. Emma, just 17 and caught in this emotional storm, had withdrawn into herself. The long, echoing corridors of her new school made her feel intensely alone. Memories of a happier past with her father, contrasted with the harsh loneliness of this new town, had turned her into a quiet, pensive girl. Her eyes often held a deep, unspoken question, and the sorrow of something lost. The flat directly opposite, 2A, was in fact the most mysterious and unsettling part of the entire building. Its occupant, whom the older residents called Mr. Oldman and the children secretly referred to as Uncle Arthur, was a strange character all by himself. Arthur was around 60, but his demeanor seemed much older and more cryptic. The hair on his head was so sparse that he almost always wore an old, stained flat cap. On the rare occasions he took it off, it was a jarring sight. The few long, stray strands of hair he had were dyed an unnatural, greasy gray, as if someone had mixed paint with old engine oil and slopped it onto his scalp. But the most disturbing thing about him were his eyes. They were deep-set, black, and utterly lifeless, like two dark voids that seemed to swallow the light and soul of anyone they looked upon. They held no warmth, no emotion, just a cold, relentless depth that wanted to take everything in. From the very first week, Emma felt a strange unease. Every time she returned from school or went out, just as she put her key in the lock of her own front door, she'd feel a cold prickle on the back of her neck. She'd turn to find Uncle Arthur either standing idly at his door or peeking from behind his old beige window blinds. The blind would shift just a fraction, offering a glimpse of those two dark voids for only a second, but that second felt like an eternity to Emma. It was as if he were a spider, sitting silently at the center of his web, and Emma was the prey gradually getting entangled. His eyes weren't just seeing, they were touching, feeling, and monitoring her every breath. One day, after 2 weeks of this, Emma gathered the courage to tell her mother. She found Rose preparing dinner in the kitchen. "Mum, that man, the one in flat 2A," she began, clearing her throat nervously. "All the time, whenever I go out or come back, he's watching me. It's like he's waiting for me. It feels really weird." Rose initially laughed it off. "Oh, love, it's just your imagination. Old people are like that sometimes. They don't have much else to do. Girls your age get all sorts of funny ideas." But one evening, as they were unloading shopping from the car, Rose suddenly got the distinct feeling of being watched. She glanced towards flat 2A, and then she saw it. The blind twitched, and from behind it, Uncle Arthur's black, lifeless eyes were clearly visible, staring directly at them, or perhaps specifically at Emma. It wasn't just a glance, it was a warning, a silent declaration of war. A shiver ran down Rose's spine. The hairs on her arms stood up. She immediately looked at Emma, who was unobliviously closing the car door. She grabbed her daughter's arm and hurried her inside. The moment the door was shut, she pulled Emma close, the fear in her voice now unconcealed. "Emma, listen to me carefully," she said, now unconcealed, and looking straight into her daughter's eyes. "Stay away from that man. Don't look his way, don't talk to him, and if he ever tries to speak to you, you come straight inside. Understood?" "But, Mom, why?" Emma asked, her voice filled with innocence. Because there are some people in this world whose hearts and eyes are ill. And that man, he gives me a very bad feeling. We'll be safe, just promise me you'll do as I say." And in that moment, the same fear took root in both their hearts. This place, which was supposed to be their new home, might not be a safe haven at all. It was a new battleground, and the enemy had already marked them with his gaze. Rose's night shifts cast Emma's life into a monotonous and frightening routine. As evening fell and Rose left in her white nurse's uniform, the keys to flat 2B felt like a heavy weight in her hand. As the sun set and shadows grew long, so too did the fear inside Emma grow. This was the time when the silent walls of the flat began to speak, and every minor sound echoed like a dreadful noise. Emma would be sitting in her room doing her homework. In the deep silence of the night, a sound would suddenly reach her ears. Creak, click. It was exactly the sort of sound a footstep would make, carefully placed, without much pressure, on the old wooden floorboards in the living room. Emma's breath would catch. She'd stop writing, listening intently. Then another footstep. Creak, click. This sound was coming from right outside her bedroom door, as if someone was standing there. Gathering her courage, she would get up. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was sure anyone standing in the hall would be able to hear it. Her hands trembled as she reached for the door handle. Taking a deep breath, she yanked the door open. And there would be nothing there, just an empty, dark hallway. But as she turned to go back, the floorboard beneath her feet let out a faint creak. It was exactly the spot where the footstep sound had come from. It felt as though someone had just stepped off it. Emma loved to read. The books on her shelf were neatly arranged in alphabetical order. But she'd wake up to find her favorite novel, a collection of ghost stories, lying face down on the shelf. At first she thought maybe a draft from the window had knocked it over. Then another day, her chemistry textbook, which she had placed on the right side of the shelf, was on the left. On the cover, she noticed a smudge, a mark that looked exactly like the pad of a thumb, as if someone with damp fingers had touched it. She lifted the book to her nose. It smelled strange, of old sweat and something sour. It wasn't the smell her books usually had. She was sure she was a careful person. Every night before bed, she made a point of turning the kitchen tap off firmly, even giving it an extra twist for good measure. But on 2 separate nights, she woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. Drip, drip, drip. The sound was so clear, echoing in the complete silence. The tap wasn't fully on, but it was loose enough for water to drip continuously. It felt deliberate, as if someone had left it like that just to create the noise. Then came the final sign, the night that turned all her suspicions into certainty.
She had gone to bed and was just drifting off when she felt the need to use the loo. As always, she switched on the hall light and walked to the bathroom. On her way back, her eyes fell on the main front door. A thin line of light from the communal hallway outside was visible under the door. Suddenly, that light was blocked.
It was as if someone was standing directly on the other side of the door, their feet cutting off the light. Emma's blood ran cold. She stood frozen to the spot. And then it happened. From the other side of the door came the sound of a rapid fleeing footsteps. This wasn't the careful creeping from before. This was a full-force sprint, the sound of scuffing shoes rushing away across the old carpet runner. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs, feeling like it would burst out and smash against the wall. As if trapped in a nightmare, she scurried back into her room, shut the door, and turned the lock. She sat on her bed, breathless and trembling. She grabbed her phone and called her mother. The phone rang only twice before Rose answered. "Mom!" Emma's voice was choked and shaking. "Mom, there's someone here. I'm telling you, someone gets into our house at night when you're not here. I've heard them. I've seen the signs. And just now he was standing right outside the door." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Rose's voice came through, tired, heavy, the voice of a mother torn between her own exhaustion and her daughter's seeming delusion. "Emma, my love, it's your imagination. You're alone too much. Your mind is playing tricks on you. It's the pressure of your studies. Just go asleep. Everything will seem better in the morning. I'll make you something nice tomorrow." The next day at school, she told one of her close friends. The girl laughed and said, "Oh, Emma, you too. It's from watching all those horror films. We're all teenagers. Our hormones are all over the place. Just ignore it. It'll go away." These uniform responses from everyone became a new kind of prison for her. She knew what she was feeling was real, but everyone was dismissing it as a teenager's imagination. Her fear grew deeper in its isolation. She was a prisoner in her own home, a prisoner of her own fear and of the fact that no one would listen. Little did she know that on the other side of the door, a sick mind was watching her, tracking her every move and taking pleasure in watching its prey slowly lose itself in its own mind. It was a Wednesday evening. Emma was walking back from school. The weather was pleasant, but a weight sat heavy on her heart. As she approached her apartment block, she saw Uncle Arthur standing at his door. He looked even more disheveled than usual. The same old flat cap, the same grubby coat, and beneath it, those unnaturally dyed strands of hair. Emma averted her eyes and quickened her pace, but as she passed him, Uncle Arthur spoke. "Emma, your mum's on nights again tonight, isn't she?" The ground seemed to lurch beneath Emma's feet. Her heart gave a violent thud. Arthur continued, his voice carrying a strange, unnatural sweetness that clashed with the emptiness in his face. "You'll be all alone then, in the whole flat, completely alone." Hearing this, the hairs on Emma's arms stood up. A shiver shot through her body. She never told him her or her mother's schedule. How did he know? She didn't answer. She walked so quickly to her flat it was almost a run. She unlocked the door, got inside, and slammed it shut behind her. Leaning against the door, she spent several minutes just breathing in and out, trying to calm herself. She remained unsettled late into the night. Uncle Arthur's words echoed in her mind. She had finished her homework and was just lying down to sleep when a strange sound suddenly met her ears. Bzzz, bzzz. It was a sound like a power drill, but it wasn't coming from the street outside, nor was it coming from a neighboring flat. It seemed to be coming from within the very walls of her own apartment. Her heart pounded fiercely in her chest. She got out of bed. The moment she stood up, the sound stopped.
She turned on all the lights in the flat. She went into every room, checked every corner. There was no one. Then her gaze fell on the kitchen. A faint cloud of dust seemed to be settling behind the fridge. Summoning her courage, she went into the kitchen. She pushed the fridge forward slightly, and then she saw it. In the wall behind the fridge, about 5 feet off the ground, was a small, freshly made hole. Dust and bits of plaster were scattered around it. A lightning bolt of understanding shot through her mind. The books that moved by themselves, the footsteps, the dripping tap, none of it was an accident. She took a slow, hesitant step forward. She bent down and peered into the hole. And then it happened, the moment that would haunt her for the rest of her life. On the other side of the hole was a single, dark, glistening eye, staring back at her with cold, merciless intensity. A blood-curdling scream tore from Emma's throat. She stumbled backwards, crashing into the wall. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She fumbled for her phone and called her mother. "Mom, Mom, there's someone's in our walls. He's made a hole. He saw me." Rose, initially thinking it was another one of her daughter's episodes, was jolted awake by the raw, genuine terror in Emma's voice. "Love, call the police right now. I'm coming home." Emma dialed 999. The police arrived within 5 minutes. 2 officers listened to Emma's frantic story and examined the hole. Their demeanor shifted instantly from routine to serious. The experienced officer immediately called for backup and began a meticulous search of the entire apartment. The discovery was both shocking and horrifying. In Emma's bedroom wall, right near her head of the bed, was a small hole pointing directly where she slept. In the bathroom wall, another hole positioned directly opposite the shower. In the living room, another cleverly hidden behind the sofa. In total, the police found 8 such small, carefully drilled holes throughout the apartment, all strategically placed and often concealed behind furniture or pictures. Every single one of them led directly into the neighboring flat, Uncle Arthur's flat. The police immediately secured a warrant for Arthur's flat. The scene inside was even more grotesque. A stool was positioned in front of one wall, a place where he evidently sat. In the wall before him were the same 8 holes, each one neatly numbered, like exhibits in a museum. On a small table nearby sat an old camera, a small video recorder, and a thick journal. When the police opened it, they found a detailed log of Emma and Rose's daily routines. The journal entries read, 7:30 a.m., Emma leaves for school, white shirt, blue jeans. 4:15 p.m., Rose returns home, looks tired. 11:20 a.m., Emma gets water in kitchen, goes to bed crying. A check of his criminal record revealed that Arthur had 2 prior convictions for stalking and harassing young girls. He was a seasoned peeper, a predator who made a habit of targeting girls who lived in his vicinity. Emma and her mother moved out immediately. For weeks afterwards, Emma was plagued by nightmares. The memory of that dark, staring eye sent her into a panic at random moments. But the experience taught her a crucial lesson. Never ignore your gut feeling. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your intuition is raising an alarm to protect you. Don't silence it. As for Uncle Arthur, he was prosecuted again, and this time his sentence would be considerably longer. But for Emma, the real punishment was the fear that left a deep scar on her heart, the unshakable belief that sometimes the greatest terror lies hidden behind the wall closest to you.